Hey there, pirates. Welcome aboard the Anime No Me channel. Guys, Rayleigh's bounty at his peak is a mystery that Oda guards like gold. But the current manga has already left more than enough clues to suggest that it easily surpassed Luffy's 3 billion. Roger's right-hand man was not a supporting character, but a monster who cut through entire fleets, made Garp break a sweat, and carried the weight of Roger's dream. In chapter 1059, we see an old Rayleigh casually slicing Blackbeard's ship in half and Teach retreats in fear. Just imagine him in his prime, alongside Roger conquering the Grand Line. Roger ended with a bounty of 5,564,000,000. As his right-hand man, Rayleigh certainly was not far below that. Chapter 1096 reveals that at God Valley, a young Rayleigh was already facing Rocks alongside Garp, cutting down Marines with ease. Rocks had a bounty of 2.5 billion, and a young Whitebeard was already a monster. Rayleigh was right in the middle of all that, sword shining. If Kaido's right-hand man King had 1,390,000,000, then Roger's right-hand man had to have far more. Luffy today has 3 billion, thanks to epic feats, such as defeating Kaido and Big Mom, awakening Nika, and exposing the Void Century. But Rayleigh, at his peak, had already accomplished equally impressive feats. He faced Garp at his prime, invaded forbidden territories, and reached Laugh Tale with Roger. At his peak, with Roger by his side, Rayleigh's bounty likely surpassed 4 billion, perhaps even 4.8 billion. The past was wilder, the wars were bigger, and the challenge was the entire world without the division of the Yonko. Rayleigh, at his peak, was not just the vice captain, but the shadow that balanced the pirate king. Oda always shows that the past carried greater weight. In chapter 1059, Rayleigh still intimidates the Yonko. If he could do that as an old man, imagine what he could do at the height of his career, when the entire world feared Roger and his crew. Oda also made it clear in chapter 1096 by showing Rayleigh facing Rocks at God Valley that he was on the same level as the greatest figures, such as Garp and a young Whitebeard. He was not support, he dominated. Chapter 1110, with Zoro cutting the Seraphim S-Hawk, Mihawk's clone, gives us a parallel. Mihawk is a rival of Shanks, who is a rival of Rayleigh. This only reinforces how immense Rayleigh's power was at his peak, and why his bounty would have been well above Luffy's 3 billion, because Oda loves to show that the past carried more weight. Rayleigh at his peak was the vice captain of the Pirate King, the man who faced Rocks, found the One Piece, and challenged the world government. In chapter 1120, an old Rayleigh watches Luffy's growth, smiling as he knows his student is about to reach his level. But at his peak, Rayleigh was not only respected by legends like Kizaru and Garp, he was also the man Blackbeard still fears. Rayleigh's bounty at his peak likely surpassed 4 billion, because the manga clearly showed that he cut down what no one else dared to cut. Luffy, with 3 billion, is already an emperor. Rayleigh, at his peak, was the vice captain of the Pirate King, and the manga has made it clear that he was the perfect balance for Roger. Even in chapter 967, Rayleigh was there, smiling beside Roger, knowing the One Piece was within reach. Rayleigh, at his peak, had a bounty that reflected the terror he inspired across the world. Rayleigh was not just the shadow protecting Roger's son, he was the force that allowed the Pirate King to shine. Oda showed this throughout the entire story, and Rayleigh's bounty at his peak must have been higher than Luffy's current one, because he did things the entire world feared, all while standing beside Roger, the man who challenged the gods. The mystery of Rayleigh's bounty at his peak continues to intrigue us, and as the manga moves forward, more clues emerge to deepen this comparison with Luffy. Rayleigh's power went beyond simple physical strength. He was not just the vice captain of the Pirate King, he was the pillar that supported Roger's greatness. Oda has always been skilled at contrasting the present with the past, showing that the story of One Piece is not just a fight against the world government, but a constant reflection on what has already been achieved and how later generations compare to those that came before. When analyzing Rayleigh's legacy, it becomes clear that despite Luffy's impressive victories, the old vice captain's bounty at his peak would surpass the current protagonist's 3 billion without a shadow of a doubt. Luffy, with his 3 billion bounty, is undoubtedly an emperor of the New World. His fights against Kaido and Big Mom, his battles in Wano, and his rise as a pirate king in the making are events that deeply shook the order of the New World. However, comparing his achievements to Rayleigh's at his peak shows that the scope of Roger's vice captain's feats was even greater. While Luffy challenged 2 Yonko, Rayleigh stood beside Roger himself. himself, the man who challenged the entire world. Roger, with his colossal bounty of 5,564,000,000, represented the pinnacle of piracy, and Rayleigh was there not merely as a follower, but as an indispensable companion. In terms of impact, the past was wilder. The world was not divided between Yonko and Marines. The entire world was the enemy, and Rayleigh, with his power, balanced the course of piracy alongside Roger. Rayleigh's bounty at his peak reflects that reality. He not only faced the greatest threats of his era, such as rocks, but also dealt with challenges that Luffy, even at his strongest, has not yet had to face, such as the world government in its entirety. Rayleigh did not limit himself to performing impressive individual feats, such as defeating Marines or Yonko. He was part of an entire era, an era in which wars were not fought only between pirates, but between the entire system of the world government and the pirates who challenged its power. His involvement at God Valley alongside Garp was not a simple clash with a legendary pirate like Rocks. It was the battle that shaped the future of the world. When Rayleigh faced Rocks, he stood on the same battlefield as Garp and Sengoku, two of the greatest heroes in marine history, and even so, he stood out among them all, cutting down enemies as if they were leaves in the wind. By Roger's side, he faced the worst of piracy and proved that becoming the true pirate king required more than just strength. It required the vision and ability to dominate the entire world. Unlike Luffy, whose rise is more recent in the manga, Rayleigh was already a legend by the time Roger's crew reached Laugh Tale. Roger himself, upon arriving at the final island, already knew his legacy was secure, because Rayleigh was there to ensure that nothing could tear down what they had built. Rayleigh's bounty at his peak would certainly have been very close to Roger's, because he was just as indispensable as the captain himself. There is no doubt that Rayleigh played a critical role not only in Roger's victories, but also in the battles that defined the entire pirate era. What makes Rayleigh's bounty even more impressive is the fact that despite being Roger's right-hand man, he never sought fame in the same way. Rayleigh was the kind of warrior who did not need external recognition. He knew the world feared him, but he did not care. He was there to make sure Roger reached the top, and his bounty, although massive, was likely more a natural consequence of his position and power than a personal goal. Unlike Luffy, who constantly seeks growth and self-improvement, Rayleigh was more focused on fulfilling his mission. In chapter 1059, the manga shows us a retired Rayleigh, still imposing, cutting Blackbeard's ship in half with a single strike. Even at an advanced age, he was such a great threat that Teach himself, with 2 devil fruits, felt the need to retreat. That scene is not only a reminder of Rayleigh's power at his peak, but also a testament to how his legend endures in the present world, frightening even the strongest pirates. With this choice, Oda reinforces Rayleigh's impact in the past. At his peak, his bounty would have been among the highest, perhaps even surpassing 4 billion. When we directly compare feats, Luffy has 3 billion after defeating Kaido and Big Mom, awakening the power of Nika, and most importantly, becoming a voice that challenges the world government by exposing the Void Century. These are tremendous victories that establish Luffy as a powerful figure in the new world. But Rayleigh at his peak had already faced the greatest threats in the world. He not only stood on the battlefield beside Roger, but also defied the world government itself without ever surrendering. His fight against Rocks, the most feared pirate of his era, and his constant presence alongside Roger in the conquest of Laugh Tale show that Rayleigh was not merely a companion, but a fundamental pillar in achieving the impossible. Roger himself knew this, and that symbiosis is what made Roger's crew the most feared of all. When we look toward the future, Rayleigh appears more as a protective shadow, watching over Luffy, than as a direct rival. In chapter 1120, we see Rayleigh smiling as he observes Luffy's growth, knowing that the legacy he helped build is finally in good hands. However, Luffy still has much to prove before reaching the level Rayleigh had at his peak. Rayleigh was not just the Pirate King's right-hand man, he was the balance between Roger's dream and the real world. His bounty reflected that crucial role. While Luffy tries to balance his achievements with the construction of his own legend, Rayleigh had already shown what it truly means to be unbeatable. Rayleigh is the reflection of an era in which piracy had no limits. The current Luffy, with his 3 billion bounty, is still carving his path, while Rayleigh had already cleared the path for Roger to reach the final island, defeating enemies greater than anything Luffy has faced so far. Rayleigh's bounty at his peak, which likely surpassed 4 billion, was a natural consequence of the immeasurable strength of a man who stood beyond everyone's reach. Rayleigh's impact on the world of One Piece is immortalized in every chapter, every mention of his legend. Oda presents us with a man who, even as he grows old, still carries the weight of an entire era on his shoulders. Chapter 9, 106 67, where we see Roger's crew arriving at Laugh-Tale, shows Rayleigh smiling, knowing he was part of building that historic moment. Rayleigh's bounty at his peak reflected the weight of his legacy, and it is a legacy that Luffy may still have to reach. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.